So, Alex Jones getting kicked off of YouTube and Facebook and Spotify has unleashed this debate, not just between liberals or progressives and conservatives, but within the progressive movement itself. And when this story first came out, I honestly did not know how to feel about it. I wasn't sure where to stand. I had leanings in one direction, but I was open to being convinced that Alex Jones should be forced to be allowed to be on YouTube. I was open to that argument. But I've now heard enough. I've heard enough from both sides of this argument to understand what this debate actually is, what the terms of this debate actually are. And I'm going to try and break it down. So, Glenn Beck, I have to say, the title of this video will be Glenn Beck something. But before I get to Glenn Beck's tweet where he quote tweeted me, I just want to say he wasn't mean about it. So I will get to Glenn Beck's tweet eventually. He wasn't mean about what he was saying, but his argument is wrong and he is hypocritical, and I will show you that. But before I get there, I want you to understand how I view this issue and the argument that I heard that ultimately convinced me of who was right in this debate. And that person is Benjamin Dixon. So he's a progressive podcaster, YouTuber. I'm going to play this clip from a recent episode of his where he breaks down what this whole Alex Jones debate, this whole Alex Jones being banned from YouTube, Facebook, what this is really about.
I do not recall you having this much outcry, this much disgust and concern over Colin Kaepernick being, according to your definition, censored and having his First Amendment right violated, even though I know that that is not a First Amendment issue, not with Colin Kaepernick. Some people don't realize that. I do, and I've made this argument several times. This is not a battle over the First Amendment. This is a battle of the culture wars. What are we as a collective body politic going to allow? Are we going to allow the NFL to silence Colin Kaepernick, not violating his freedom of speech, because his freedom of speech is still, he can still go out and take a knee anywhere he wants to take a knee. But are we as a collective people going to allow the NFL to punish him for their political reasons? It is a culture war issue that's being fueled by the president of the United States. Likewise, this thing with Alex Jones has nothing to do with censorship. It has everything to do with the collective body politic saying what we will and will not permit, particularly from companies that are profiting, making millions of dollars off of him. And this isn't just about the money he makes. This isn't just about how ridiculous he is. This is also about him violating their own terms of agreement of service. The very things that every single one of us who we are all individual content creators, we all have to abide by these same exact rules. Period. So this isn't about his free speech. This is about whether or not we are going to silently allow. Yes, we as a collective. What do you mean, Ben? What gives you the right? I'm a part of this body politic just like you. We as a collective people, as a collective voice, can determine what is acceptable and not acceptable beyond what the Constitution says.
That's it. That's it. This is a culture war. This is not about Alex Jones's First Amendment rights. These are private companies, private entities. If you want to argue to nationalize YouTube or nationalize Facebook, where they have to abide by the First Amendment, then you can do that. You can argue that. But if you're trying to argue for private companies to be forced to platform somebody that they don't want to platform, that has repeatedly broken their terms of service, then you're just wrong. Protecting Alex Jones, trying to... I know a lot of lefties are getting angry. I'm not protecting Alex Jones. You are debating. You are trying to protect his ability to be platformed on YouTube. So fine, you're not protecting Alex Jones, but you're trying to protect his right to speak on YouTube. You defending that doesn't help lefties. It doesn't help the BDS movement. It doesn't help left-wing channels on YouTube. How does that help? How does defending Alex Jones, trying to defend Alex Jones' ability to post on YouTube, how does that help left-wing channels? How? Oh, slippery slope. What slippery slope? Alex Jones repeatedly broke their terms of service. If you're not breaking YouTube's terms of service, you have nothing to worry about. That is what this debate is about. Their terms of service. This is not about a First Amendment issue. This is Alex Jones repeatedly violating their terms of service. That's what this is about. You might not like it. You might not like that corporations have that kind of power, but they do. And if you don't like that they have that power, then fight to nationalize these platforms. But they have that power. So our power as the public, our only power here is to collectively work together, whether through boycotts or through protests, to push to facilitate an environment that we want to live in. Facilitate a culture that we believe is good, is best for all of us. That's our ability here as the public. Defending Alex Jones does not somehow help lefties. Does not somehow protect the BDS movement. All it does is give Alex Jones a voice on a platform where he's now being defended by left-wingers. Would that ever happen the other way around? Ever. This is why the left is losing the culture war. This is why lefties get fired from universities more than right-wingers do. Because we don't make our case. We give in. We allow the right to take over that debate. We allow the right to say that they are being silenced when we are being silenced. We let them define the terms of the culture war debate when we don't have to. That's the problem. So I have a perfect example of that using Glenn Beck, and I'm going to show you that. So let me build to it. So this was the tweet that I put out that blew the hell up. Everybody from Glenn Greenwald to Jimmy Dore to Kyle Kulinski to Glenn Beck quote tweeted this and replied. And let me show you first what the tweet is, and let me explain it. So this is what I tweeted out. Lefties defending Alex Jones right now. I hear you. On the surface, it appears to set bad precedent to give massive corporations control over who's silenced. But if you aren't performing hate speech, libel, or slander on a regular basis, then I don't know what you're worried about. Now, that tweet is in relation to their terms of service. The terms of service on YouTube, on Facebook. Not about the First Amendment. Again, Facebook is a private entity. YouTube is a private entity. That tweet is about their terms of service. If you aren't repeatedly breaking their terms of service, then you have nothing to worry about, because you don't. Now, a lot of the response to this tweet was about the hate speech part. Oh, how do you define hate speech? There's no hate speech in America. Well, I'm Canadian. In Canada, we do have hate speech laws. So in the context of my view as a Canadian, including hate speech in that tweet did make sense. And let me show you what Canadian law says about hate speech. It's not a big blanket thing that could be easily manipulated. It's clearly defined. So this from the Globe and Mail. Here you can be put in jail for hate speech, but before you condemn the prospect of jail for speaking your mind, consider the built-in limits to the hate speech law. There are 7 of them, and together they pour a big pail of cold water on any overzealous prosecutor intent on duct taping your mouth. For a prosecution to go ahead, all of these conditions must be met. 1. The hate speech must be the most severe of the genre. 2. The hate speech must be targeted to an identifiable group. 3. It must be public. 4. It must be deliberate, not careless. 5. Excluded from hate speech are good faith interpretations of religious doctrine, discussions of issues of public interest, and literary devices like sarcasm and irony. 6. The statements must be hateful when considered in their social and historical context. 7. No prosecution can proceed without approval of the Attorney General, which introduces political accountability because the Attorney General is a cabinet minister. Even with these limits, the Canadian hate law still clearly curtails free expression, but the Supreme Court has not struck it down. Why? 4 main reasons. First, our Constitution protects not only free expression, but multiculturalism and equality as well. So to read the Constitution holistically, we cannot permit one protected freedom to undermine other rights and freedoms enjoying equal status. Second, the Supreme Court recognized the insidious impact of propaganda campaigns that gain social traction and incrementally dull our rational faculties and empathy. Perhaps paternalistic, but the court is saying sometimes we need to be protected from our baser and stupider selves. Third, the courts have said that even if a hate speech prohibition is never used, it has symbolic value, like that framed mission and value statement on the wall of most businesses that stares silently down at the workers while they work. Fourth, hate speech has no redeeming value. So, this is why my view of hate speech is different than the typical American. And in my opinion, this sort of thing has facilitated a healthier culture here. And that, in addition to our version of the fairness doctrine that Reagan got rid of in the 80s, also has allowed our broadcast news to also have some sort of standard. So our fairness doctrine, if a network amasses enough complaints and is found to have knowingly and deliberately broadcasted false news, its license can be limited or revoked. So even though that's rarely been used, what it does is it creates this environment where there is always this awareness that if you go too far, something might happen. There may be repercussions. And it has facilitated this, I would say, more positive, healthier environment than the US is currently dealing with. Now, let me get to Glenn Beck replying to me, which is, I assume, somewhere in the title of this video. So, I tweeted about, I showed you the tweet, lefties defending Alex Jones. Glenn Beck comes out and replies with this. It all comes down to who has control. If you are confident that you will always live in a country controlled by reasonable people without a mob mentality, you're fine. But for those who understand the Red Scare and civil rights movement, know that it always turns. Hashtag free speech for all. And this disingenuous argument, which I'm going to break down in a second, is exactly why progressives need to speak out in this culture war, so that we can define the terms and push back against their bullshit. So, look, there are people sending me links to BDS pages that were pulled down off Facebook. Okay, how does that have anything to do with Alex Jones? That happened before Alex Jones. Defending Alex Jones' ability to be platformed on these sites does not somehow benefit the BDS movement's ability to be platformed on those same sites. They're not equal. They are different things. We can make that argument. We can make that case. We know they are different things. We can have one that is culturally not acceptable and the other one that is culturally acceptable. Again, these are private entities. This is about their terms of service. This is not about the First Amendment. So, let me show you how, why Glenn Beck is dishonest. So, he treats Alex Jones here as a First Amendment issue. So, he ends this with a hashtag free speech for all. Oh, free speech for all. How about, what did he think about Colin Kaepernick? Let's see. Glenn Beck, watch. ESPN anchor finds out Kaepernick didn't vote. Teaches QB a lesson he'll never forget. Glenn Beck again. Cry more. Kaepernick's, quote, racial struggle as a child. Kaepernick wears Fidel Castro t-shirt. Cuban tortured by Castro reacts. Not clear enough? This is off Glenn Beck's website from last month. Tennessee Titans defensive end Jurrell Casey has decided that he will continue his whining and kneeling. He added that, quote, At the end of the day, we got to do a job, but I will continue to use my platform to keep on speaking up, end quote. Yes, he does have a job to do, and that job is playing football. His bosses have made it clear that political activism is not part of the job. Who knows? Maybe Casey can find work elsewhere. I hear that universities love to hire self-righteous ranting lunatics. There's also Starbucks. They need a self-righteous CEO. Oh, but Glenn, what about hashtag free speech for all? So this is the hypocrisy and the irony in some sense. Glenn Beck's argument against kneeling is actually correct. He can make that case as somebody who is engaging in this debate in the culture wars. That is a culture war debate because Kaepernick is not protected by the First Amendment. This kneeling is not protected. They are doing it as employees of the NFL. So Glenn Beck can make the case that he can and should be forced by the NFL, by these teams, to not protest. He can make that case. But on the other side of that, he then can't make the case that, well, now in Alex Jones' case, no, Alex Jones, that's a free speech issue. Alex Jones, all about free speech, even though it's also under a private company. But no, free speech. Alex Jones, free speech issue. Kneeling in the NFL, culture war. No, Glenn. They're both culture war issues. So you can't just pick and choose where you want to defend free speech. This is not a First Amendment issue. These are both culture war issues, as these are both private entities. So that's it. I hope I cleared that up. And look, I'm not angry at any progressives that have disagreed with me on this. We can have our difference of opinion, but I want you to clearly understand what the terms of this debate are, what we're actually talking about. Again, if you want to push for Alex Jones, for anybody, or for Facebook to abide by the First Amendment, then push for them to be nationalized. That should be your argument. But to try and shoehorn Facebook or YouTube into public utilities when they're not doesn't make any sense. Who's to decide that Facebook and YouTube should abide by the First Amendment, but my website shouldn't? What if Alex Jones wants to post on my website? Should he be allowed to? No. So why should Facebook or YouTube be forced to allow Alex Jones to post on their site? And I get it. You're going to say, well, YouTube is like the public square. Sure, it's like the public square, but it's not. It's a private entity. So if you want to make it like the public square, then nationalize it. Make it a public utility. That is the debate. And hopefully I don't have to talk about this anymore. So understand where I'm coming from. Understand that this is a culture war issue and that the left has to do a much better job at fighting back in the culture wars, because right now we are losing that battle.